stuff like that, and our emergency services. Let's take a moment of prayer. Thank you. Before we get started tonight, there's two young individuals here that, I don't want to say traveled all the way around the world, but they did pretty good. They took a nice long flight all the way to Milan, Italy, where they played soccer with kids from all over the world, right? So it was quite the experience for these two young lads, and we're going to have them come up over here by the podium. You stand right here, and we have you just turn around, face the audience here, and you say your name out loud, and this is?
I'm Caleb
What's the last name, Caleb?
from Austin.
And this young fella here?
My name is Xander Odell.
Xander, I went to school with your mother, so you can tell her that. Can we give these two young fellas a round of applause? And before they left, I was able to catch Caleb before he got on the plane. We gave them a 120th anniversary coin to give to their teammates. So all the folks who were on the team from various parts of the world got a little piece of Highland Falls to represent. So we did this, the board, on behalf of the village board and myself, we did these certificates for you, one for Caleb and Xander. In recognition of proudly representing the village of Highland Falls and Fort Montgomery, our supervisors here, during the soccer trip to Italy, and for demonstrating outstanding community spirit, sportsmanship, and leadership both on and off the field. Your dedication, teamwork, and positive conduct reflected the values of our village and served as an inspiration to teammates, coaches, and the wider community. So congratulations and thanks for doing a great job. That's how politicians get elected. Good job. Thanks, boys.
Ciao, fellas.
Yeah.
Hold on. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. This is a work session, but we're going to have public comment primarily on the battery storage facility that is in the process of being proposed. So when we get to that point, that's what the main contribution from the public will be tonight. As always, if you have something really pressing, we try to stick to the agenda, but we'll take whatever question you have. So next on the agenda, I have approved bills and claims for warrant number 2511, the total amount of $116,551.87, of which general fund represents $56,207.12. Water fund will be $11,102.55, and the sewer fund will be $49,242.20. I need a motion, a second, and approval. Motion by trustee Gargiulo, is there a second? Second by trustee Carroll. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We have approved the West Point Town of Highlands Farmers Market sponsored by Vision 2002 on Sundays from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. from June 21, 2026 to November 1, 2026 in Municipal Lot 2 pending certificate of insurance. I need a motion by trustee Gargiulo and a second
Second.
by trustee Olivia. I just want to thank Vision for putting this on every year. It's a good event. I'm for more and more residents to go to it. They have a lot of good stuff there. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Approve the Town of Highlands Approve the Town of Highlands Chamber Car Cruise and third annual Best of Car Show sponsored by the Town of Highlands Chamber of Commerce from 5:30 PM to 9:30 PM on Main Street. The one little change we're gonna do to this request is that I would recommend that we approve it for the parking lot 2 area. And we had some questions and comments about some of the folks on Main Street, so I'd rather not tie up Main Street. And I'd also like to approve 3 dates, the May, June, and July dates, and then we can take it from there. So the change would be that we would not close down Main Street, they would have parking lot 2, which is what we just approved for the farmer's market, but this will be on Wednesdays. So they'll have parking lot 2, and then folks can park on Main Street. Make a motion, as amended?
Yeah.
Okay, as amended. You got that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second on that motion?
Quick discussion,
I just need a second first. I'm gonna make the motion.
I second.
I'm sorry, Pete made the motion. Trustee Gargiulo seconded it. Yes.
I'm not sure if there was an actual decision made or not. I do think there was some discussion with the Bear Mountain Car Cruise, or their car show that they do. I'm okay to approve, I would say the first round, maybe just being in the municipal lot, but if they do tend to, get more vehicles, I do think that we should allow
Absolutely,
Main Street.
absolutely. All right? We could always adjust. No, that's not a problem. So a motion second, we have a little discussion. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Authorize, this is. I call you Mr. Ramos, I apologize. Authorize the mayor or deputy mayor to sign the termination letter for Paychex payroll services. We tried to use Paychex. It has not been successful, so you have to know when it's not working out in a relationship. So we're gonna end the relationship with Paychex. But we have the backup right underneath it. So for a service that we already had, and now we have a full package with the software, so it works a lot better. But in order to get out of Paychex, I need approval to do that. So a motion by Trustee Gargiulo, seconded by Trustee Carroll. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And then authorize mayor and/or deputy mayor to sign Edmunds, which is the financial system we use at Village Hall, to sign an Edmunds contract for finance viewpoint and payroll services, including employee self-service. They have a great app. We're trying to change how we do things in Village Hall, get things a little bit more clean and accurate, so this will help dramatically do that. So I need a motion to authorize me or the deputy mayor to sign the Edmunds contract for finance viewpoint and payroll services. Motion by Trustee Olivia, seconded by Trustee Gargiulo. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. I'm just going to do a little change. I had one thing added to the agenda tonight, which I spoke to the board about. It's a company called CDR Electronics. They put in all our security cameras on Main Street that we got through a grant. They've done some work in Village Hall, and we've had nothing but issues with issuing keys for Village Hall or the senior center. So this, and folks who work for the village having an ID if they're at someone's property, or if they're, if we have VRI who's going to a resident's house, having an ID from the village. This kind of cleans all that up. It allows us to have a system in place at Village Hall, the police department, and the senior center that allows for a digital card to be turned on and turned off. You can allow it to use, Monday through Friday if you want to have someone have full access. It'll let you know who's coming in the building. It'll, date stamp stuff and time stamp stuff. So I think it's a very, very good thing. There's money in the police budget that we found to do this program.
It's well worth it, and just so the public knows, it's for both the police department and village hall, and the initial setup, there's no annual fees for this stuff, it's $13,168.84, and then for the senior center, it's $2,394.81. So we can issue keys to folks if they need them, it's not a problem. Then if they don't return them, we don't have to go spend $150 every time to get one of those keys that do not duplicate, we just turn it off. So I think it's a good thing, it helps for security, helps for ease of use, and for traffic.
It's almost like a time card, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. So I would just need a motion to approve those two purchases. Motion by trustee Carroll, seconded by trustee Olivia. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And then the next thing before we go to the public input, public participation portion is the approval from Dillon and Smemenovich, Inc. to repair the Center Street retaining wall damaged by a car accident per recommendation of the village engineer, Todd Atkinson, at a total of $195,157.92, including estimated engineer, design, construction inspection, and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, permit approvals, pending payment from Geico Insurance. So I'm not gonna execute it until we have a confirmation from Geico, which we're just waiting on.
That was my comment,
Yep.
exactly, so thank
Yep.
you, yes.
And actually, I'll be abstaining from this vote, but Deputy Mayor, myself or the Deputy Mayor. So I just need a motion, second, and then we'll do a roll call. Motion by trustee Gargiulo, seconded by trustee Carroll. Roll call?
Trustee Olivia?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Gardula?
Yes.
Mayor DeSalvo?
Abstain. And just so the public knows, I'm abstaining because they're actually a customer of Walkdale Valley Federal, so I don't want any improprieties. We had a couple estimates, and they were the low bid, so, full disclosure. So, Mr. Ramos will sign that, but he'll have that direction. Okay, let's talk about battery storage. And I just want to give some information out, and then by all means, we'll take questions. 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Just want to kind of give you folks an overview, and then we'll go from there. So as the public knows, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, roughly 2 months ago, there was a proposal to do battery storage in a residential area in Cedar Lane. I had had my doubts. We had a couple of conversations with this company, New Leaf Energy, and I said, well, we're going to have a public meeting about it, get the public's input, and kind of hear from them, and as we try to do here, make a better judgment call after we hear from the public. So we had the public meeting. I think a lot that was said made sense. I want to thank the community again. Everybody was very, polite and as best they could and professional, and we didn't get any screaming matches. And I have more people cursing about chickens than I do about battery storage, so I want to thank you all for that. And so after we had the meeting, I had a conversation with New Leaf, and they said, makes sense. The meeting, we understood, we heard from the community, we're going to withdraw that proposal. That was not with the municipality, it wasn't with the town, it wasn't with the school, it wasn't with the village, it was with a private property owner. So, in thinking about it, we found a potential location that would go on village property for the sole purpose of a couple different things. One, we understand that this is New York State's new initiative for trying to enhance power through the Hudson Valley and different areas in New York State, so we appreciate that. We understand that other properties have looked at them, looked at different types of battery storage, I think we have a better understanding from the meeting of the potential risks that are involved, which is why it made sense not to be in a residential area. And with that, we found this piece of property in between the water tanks and the water plant of a potential site. Nothing's been signed, right? Nothing's been signed, there's no need to go crazy. We're just talking about it. But I said the only way we could even move to the next step is to get the public's input. So the property is located at 241 Mountain Avenue, which is actually the physical water plant, so it's not at the water plant, it would be in between. There's some information in the back too. In addition to the information in the back, there's a picture of the proposed site. There's also the report from Warwick, because that had come up during the public hearing about the fires in Warwick and the potential hazards that they have. There's the full report is in the back. It's 126 pages. So we printed a couple of them. If you would like a copy, and folks have taken the ones in the back, we will email you the copy so that you can have the full 126 pages. It was a pretty good report. They had a lot of information in it, and so it's good to take a minute and read it and take a look at it. So the premises, and I'm giving you some information that I talked with New Leaf about. This is exactly the deal that was brokered should we move forward. Okay? Again, should we move forward? This is transparency. I don't know of any other board that does this, other than the town board with the supervisor. Thanks for coming, by the way. So the premises to be leased is approximately 10,000 square feet. There's Exhibit A, which is in the back, which is the potential location of the project. The option term was 365 days. The lease term is 25 years with the right to extend leases for 4 additional 5-year periods. So it's not a full, if we were to move forward, I sign in 25 years. If things aren't going right after 2 4-year terms, then we could have another discussion and maybe we're getting out of it. I don't know. That would be for the lawyers to figure out, hammer out. The rent would be $75,000 per year with 3% annual increases. And this money would go directly to the water plant and the water system. So brown water we keep talking about, new meters we keep talking about, filters we keep talking about, infrastructure for water I keep seeing on Facebook. That's where this revenue would go. Rent shall commence within the system reaches commercial operation. Full rent shall commence at the earlier the commercial operation date, 12 months after. Ownership of energy, all energy utilities, credits, and energy subsidies generated by the facility or property of the leasee. Real property taxes. This is important too. Leasee will pay all increases to real property taxes directly resulting from an installation of the facility, plus any rollback taxes that may be incurred due to the removal of the property tax exemption or removal from an architectural district. Leaseor will pay all the base real property taxes and the land and any regular increases therein, and increased real property taxes resulting from removal of tax exemption or removal from the agricultural district. So while they might not pay an actual property tax, they'll pay a pilot, which both the school and the town would benefit from. Removal of facility. Leasee will remove the facility within 180 days at the end of the lease term and leasee's sole cost. Third-party consultant, which is something else we have on the agenda tonight. New Leaf Energy will contribute $5,000 to be held in escrow that will be used for the leaseor to retain a third-party fire safety consultant and/or engineer, and funds remaining after consultant has been fully paid shall be refundable to New Leaf Energy. So in addition to that, we went out and searched for an engineer, an engineer that specializes in this stuff, this battery storage stuff. Sorry, I don't use a lot of technical terms with this because I don't know a lot of the intricate knowledge about this. So that's why we need to hire a professional. So Collier's Engineering and Design, and they have 900 offices countrywide. They're a very big outfit. I actually know one of the principals. I didn't know that they did battery storage. I just happened to be talking to him about it. He was in town working on something else for somebody else, and I was telling him about this whole endeavor that we were looking at, and he said, we actually have a whole department that specializes in this because there's an Albany office. This is big in other parts of the state, as being pushed by the governor in Albany. So that would be the engineering firm that I would recommend that we hire. I spoke to him about with our engineer. He's familiar with, our regular engineer. He's very familiar with the company. Had good things to say. So, so New Leaf would cover those expenses as well. So that's kind of the nuts and the bolts of it. Again, there's a great information sheet in the back in regards to what happened in Warwick. It's just general information and also the report. They did everything. They tested the soil, they tested the air quality, they did all the testing that you would think of the environmental testing on the facility. And again, no one's getting a new Cadillac out of this deal. Everyone still has to pay their bills up here. We are just looking at alternative ways that we can generate some revenue to help offset the expenses in this community. That's it. We understand that there's an inherent risk. There's a risk with everything. We understand that. We appreciate that. But I don't want to move forward. The board doesn't want to move forward unless we get some input from the public. I think that's paramount and very important. So I'll stop talking. Does the board have anything they want to add, or we can talk after they talk? Okay. So if you want to say something, please come to the podium. Sure, whoever. Brian, you're next. You're on deck, my friend.
That's all good.
Can everybody hear me? You all hear me? Good evening, board. I appreciate you trying to find revenue for the community, number one. And I sincerely mean that. That's a good thing. I'm Irvin Lindsay Jr. I live on 107 Mountain Avenue. I'm about the 9th house down from where the proposed facility of the storage would be located. Just real brief on my home. I've been there for about 25 years. 4 times in 25 years, I've seen the water from the brook go over the bridge by my home. During Hurricane Irene and between the July 9th storm, I have probably put out over $200,000 in damage to my home from the brook. Because of my financial situation, I could not get any kind of aid or anything like that. I've spoke to, with no exaggeration, probably 9 people from the state and county about the brook and the condition of the brook. Nothing has happened to that brook since then. So my concern is, with my home, it's back together again. There's been a lot of hard work in it. I spent a lot of time putting it all back together myself. And now it's ready to go again. So now I hear that we're going to talk about a storage facility for batteries. And I'm a little familiar with this. I know that the one part of the facility, the dangerous part, and that raises some issues to me of what happens if there's a fire, which on a fire part, that does bring dust into the air, which is toxic. And what happens on the windy day, does that go down onto my home and other homes that are in the area? If that does happen, there's a problem. The other thing is, what happens if something goes into the water? That's also going to be an issue, not just for myself, but that'll be an issue for the village, especially if it runs out into the Hudson River. Trust me when I tell you, that brook can roll 2-ton boulders down the brook. So that brings another issue to me. With all of the freak storms that we're getting right now in our nation, what happens if there's another storm? I understand that the facility is up a little bit, but what happens? What kind of guarantee do I have as a homeowner that nothing is going to happen? That's what I don't like. The other thing that I don't like is my house is back together again. What does this do for the value of my home if I were to ever sell it, somebody coming into the area saying, oh, wait a minute, there's one of them battery storage facilities up the hill. as my south neighbors down in Howland Falls didn't like the idea too much of it, mostly a lot of them, I don't either. But again, I appreciate the village board working to try to bring revenue into the community. But this is, for me, anything that's up on a hill comes down. And if you live on Mountain Avenue, you'll definitely know what's ever up on a hill is gonna roll down, fly down, or whatever it is. So I do oppose of this, and I appreciate my time. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Good evening, board. Good evening, residents of Highland Falls. Before I read my prepared statement, as I represent Brian Frederickson, I live at 131 Mountain Avenue. Before I read a prepared statement I made about Highland Falls, as a member of the Highland Falls Community Flood Resilience Working Group, I live at 131 Mountain Avenue. Mayor mentioned on the Facebook page there that the closest house is 300 yards. That is my house. I am one of the closest, or second closest. I have 5 kids. Going over this report that you gave, it's a simple thing. Coming from a family of firefighters, all right, you know chemical fire gets put out with chemicals. Hydrogen cyanide is one of the major things that gets put into the air that causes breathing issues and breathing issues with elderly, young, and those who have pre-exposed conditions. Wind goes down the mountain. Merv just mentioned that as well. Everything goes down the mountain. I am literally 300 yards away. That means if something happens, within minutes, my wife and my kids have to evacuate. I don't know if I'm going to be home to evacuate them. What about all the elderly up there to leave? On a personal issue, I definitely do not agree with this area being used. Okay, now, my prepared statement is the fact that the government cannot manage acts of God's no matter how much they plan. As we have seen after the July 9th storm, where systems that should have been monitored, maintained, and updated to account for increase in water flow have done so to the village, but their ability, they still failed. But with their ability, they still failed. As we have seen the village, county, state, and federal government's response to downstream effects of system failures due to unpredictable weather events, you would now like the village to put in place, right next to our water supply, an area that has failed before. I have video of the area failing. No matter what they did over the decades, not you guys, over the decades of the brook and the water plant being there, no matter what they did, it failed during July 9th storm. Nobody could attest, nobody could foresee that one coming. That area has failed before. Miserably, I have videos of it failing. Complete water, exactly at the location they want, full water coverage, flowing down. I have that video. You would like, in that area, a system of battery storage units. No. Okay. Local municipalities over the decades have failed to properly or adequately maintain the brook, the water flow into the brook, and the brook itself. You cannot account for the weather, the water, or federal help. We've seen that. We cannot account or rely on federal help. But you want us to agree to add this to the area, a chemical powder keg that once built leaves all the onus on the management, maintenance, and any fallout from failure on the village. And as we have seen, the village is not rich. We depend on federal help for federal issues, and they have failed woefully. The state, the local, the town, the village have failed woefully to account for the residents that live downstream, as well as any other incidents that occur. We bonded out millions of dollars and nothing, and you know, some residents still haven't seen any help. So for me, as representing the Highlands Community Flood Resilience Group, and personally, living on Mountain Avenue, the 300 yards from that, I guess, commercial or village property, it's an absolutely not for me. All right, thank you very much, guys, for listening.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello everyone, thank you for taking the time to hear me. My name is Jason Santiago. I live on 127 Mountain Avenue. I've lived here since 2001. Since 2001, I have seen so many things go by. In regards to, thank you. In regards to the weather, how this town has come together and helped each other when the catastrophe hits, right? I can applaud that the board itself has done a lot to help this community. I can't phantom to see what decision brought you to put a battery storage unit by that river. I don't care how you say it and how capacity, no one has ever done anything to stop that river from flowing or do the damage that it's done. I can tell you I spent in excess of over $80,000 in my house to repay it. $80,000, that's not worth it. But I decided to stay in this town, Highland Falls, because I love it. Right? Is it worth the risk and mitigations that you're trying to put this building in? Have you thought about that? Is it worth it? I would say build out a scenario in where the worst happens. And then think about how much that cost is an incur on this town and the lives of people. Because I can guarantee you, as these gentlemen have said, wind, weather are not going to happen. You're not going to control it. If that storage burns and fumes go up, you're talking about on air, airborne. If it hits the water, it's going to contaminate your whole water system. That's to say, do you know what damage it does on the soil? And that it's irreparable. You won't be able to get that off the soil and the water and the animals. I would just say, think about it. Do a risk and mitigation yourself. Think about how many people you're going to have to get involved. How many people are you going to have to say, I'm sorry. It's not worth it. I'm sorry. I know for one thing, this town is great. I think it's a wonderful community, but you have to listen to the community first. It's people first. However you say it. That battery storage, it's not worth it. I live right by there, just like Brian, just like other people on the road. I've had numerous damages to my home. Some of you have come by, some of you have not. None of you have been paying for us. There's no government paying for our homes to repay it. I can surely guarantee you that if something happens, no one's going to pay. We're just going to keep building or we're just going to lose our homes. So I implore you, take the risk and mitigations. Think about the worst that can happen. Build out how you're going to repair, how you're going to stop, because you're not. And the cost is going to exceed anything that this town can ever repay. Okay? Thank you.
It's me.
Hi, Tiana Bernino, Greenville Parkway, Highland Falls. I did have some questions, but it's just some quick questions based off of Mountain Ave residents, maybe just to begin with. If there is some kind of catastrophic failure or something does happen to the system, I'm assuming there is some insurance that the battery storage facility retains. What is that? Are they fully liable, and to what extent are they liable for the damage throughout the village or just surrounding their property?
Everyone hear me okay? Yes, the owner of the system would certainly be liable to the damage to the property that it sits on and any damage caused outside of that. There is general liability insurance that is certainly carried, as well as hazardous waste and pollution insurance that's carried to cover all those things.
Okay. And then has there been any consideration given the flooding in that area to the company paying for the infrastructure around it to prevent mass flooding and potentially causing catastrophic failure?
Yes, certainly. I think it's important to note that every conversation we've had up to this point has been pre any kind of agreement between the village and New Leaf Energy. this is really the first time that we're addressing this in any detail, outside of a few theoretical conversations that I personally had with the mayor, and being up to the site one time. The flooding certainly will be the primary concern that's taken into account as the site is designed. Normally, we base these things off of things like flood zones and things like that. It's almost irrelevant given the severity of the flooding that happens in the brook and what you guys experienced on that July 9th event. Our initial thought is that we can raise the system up off the ground, essentially on metal stanchions, and even if water were to come down off of the watershed off the top of the mountain, or if there were a significant water rise out of the creek, it would be raised off of that level so that it wouldn't be able to impact the system. But again, very theoretical, we're just at the beginning of this, but that's definitely something we'll take into consideration during design if we should move forward with the village.
Okay. A few more questions then, since it's a 25-year contract. Who's going to own and operate the facility long-term, and how is accountability going to be ensured if ownership changes over that 25-year contract?
Sure. So yes, New Leaf Energy is a development company. We will go through the permitting process with the village. We will design with our in-house engineering, and once all of our permits are secured, it would be sold to a long-term independent power producer, an IPP, who will be the owner and operator of that system through the lease term of 25 years. Everything that is agreed to both in the lease agreement between the village and New Leaf Energy, as well as all of the stipulations around permitting, are something that owner-operator is legally obligated to abide by throughout the entire lease term.
Okay. Then I guess the question for the village board, or maybe food for thought, is just, is that enforced contractually, and does the village have any approval over future ownership? If New Leaf does their due diligence and we decide to go this track, who's to guarantee that the next owner will be as responsible, if that's the case? So is that contractually something to think about?
You would have to look at it. The contract, right now, there is no contract. There's just discussions. So all of those issues, insurance, who gets sold to, term, I've made some initial comments on that, which the board has, but there would be a whole lot more work to do on the contract when we decide it.
I think just, to prevent future proofing of stuff. And then, so I did research and I noticed, or I guess I saw, right, most of fires that do come out of battery storage facilities, water isn't usually the typical treatment for that, because chemicals and water don't necessarily love each other. But if water is used during a fire event, is there any specific containment systems you guys already use or work with that are in place just to prevent that contaminated runoff hitting our water facilities, considering it is right next door? I know it's not very often used, but if it is, it's something to be considered.
Yeah, great question on that. When we teach the firefighters, we pretty much tell them to spare the water on the actual system itself, and maybe use an exposure if they want to cool down an exposure if they think the heat is transferring over from one to the other. And burning off energy is something that fire service has done for many years. I've worked in the fire service, burning off propane and burning off energy. We've done that many times. Can they put water on it? The answer is yes. And we have seen things where they have actually put water on it, and there was testing done, and so there hasn't been any impact reported on that side. So I can only go by what the data that I've seen as far as putting water on the actual system itself and then doing a soil sample afterwards.
Okay.
And actually they did water sample too for about 6 months up in Shimo, where they used a lot of water on it.
I just think the consideration that water may be used if we go through this project, runoff and containment of that, given its location, definitely needs to be assessed. We drink it, so. And then just one last question, and you kind of alluded to this too. Has the local fire department been fully trained, and I know we're still in preliminary talks, but just fully trained with a finalized or site-specific response plan for this type of system that's being proposed? And do we have the equipment?
They have not been fully trained for a site-specific response plan to this specific site, but that certainly is part of our standard development process and will absolutely be withheld, I'm assuming, as a permitting stipulation from the village. We have to develop a site-specific emergency response plan as standard for every single one of these that we do, and if there's any training or equipment shortages, we need to fund that at our expense.
Okay. Yeah, that's all of my questions. I'm not necessarily for or against. I think my major stress is between long-term ownership, environmental impact, and emergency planning. I really think these should be clearly hashed out before we sign a letter of intent, just because once we get the ball rolling, it can kind of be hard to stop. And I think, given home impact and things like that, we really need to do due diligence. But that's it. Thank you.
I did want to add that the fire department is in the door, because I sat in the meeting with you, preliminary, before all this even ever happened, and we went through a bit of the logistics of it, so they are aware they're digesting it on their own too, and we did revisit that at that point, so it has been discussed.
So the mayor opened up with, the village board, I guess, listened to the people last time. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was an overwhelming no.
You have to have it in a residential area.
Oh, well, now we're throwing the word residential around.
Okay.
Okay, so
That's what
this,
was said.
gotcha. So now this time, who came to who? If we really listened to the people.
We had a conversation literally after the meeting.
No, after it was decided, we don't want this in our residential area.
I don't understand your question.
Who, did they come up to you and ask about, maybe can we do it somewhere else?
No,
Oh, so you went to them and said, well, let's.
I think
Is
we were
it
just
property?
mutually talking. We were
Oh,
mutually
okay.
talking.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you really didn't listen to your constituents?
Pat, I don't know what you mean. Do you have a question in there, or you just want to make a statement?
Well, yeah, well, that's what you asked me. So last time it was an
What was your
overwhelming,
question?
no, we don't want this
Okay.
in our residential area. So now it's, okay, we won't put it in the residential area, now we're gonna put it by where our water is. But it's not on the facility, it's between the two facilities.
Again, is it a question, or you just making a statement?
Yeah, I'm just making a statement,
Oh, okay.
it's a stupid thing, it's a stupid thing. Why are we even here, basically? That's it.
Anything else? Yes, Ms. Anderson.
Hi, Olga Anderson, resident of Highland Falls. I'm here as just a civilian resident of Highland Falls. This is the second time we've come together to talk about this. But I'm afraid we don't have quite as many people as we did last time, so we're not hearing as much of the input from the community. I don't know why, but I would certainly prefer to hear more comments from more people. It seems to me that, even after several conversations and several months of this percolating, that we're really not a lot closer to understanding enough about this system and the issues around it and to satisfy our community. So we know that this is a thing that we need to do, probably for the sake of the energy grid. For a lot of good reasons, we need to be able to back up our energy storage into batteries. It's good for the future, it's a good thing. However, I do feel that it's necessary for the board to really rely on its community to provide more input, to provide better engagement around these issues. This is not a decision that can easily be made by 5 people sitting at where you're sitting. And I urge you to take this opportunity to further this community discussion and actually create a task force. We've had some excellent input, and I think you would benefit from getting more of that. So a task force could be comprised of individuals that you appoint, that are vetted, that are a cross-section of this community and include professionals like the engineers that you intend to hire and so on and so forth. So it would be a cross-section of individuals who will, over time, study all of the issues in and out of all of what we're talking about and come to a real informed decision. That's what I suggest, that you create a task force to study this issue further.
I will follow that up. My name is Melissa Everett. I'm Executive Director of Sustainable Hudson Valley, and I have the pleasure of having Olga on my board. And our program revolves around supporting the growth of renewable energy and battery storage, and by supporting towns really making informed decisions where people do not feel railroaded or blindsided, where it is, you know, the system that we live with now puts developers in an awkward position, puts towns in an awkward position, because a developer drops in and says, here's a site, yes or no. And the community scrambles to figure out yes or no. And so we have been building relationships with a bunch of experts, including Mr. Rogers, who's part of, you know, we met him through NYSERDA. NYSERDA has a whole bunch of experts, as do New York Power Authority, the whole roster of them. We just created a webinar, which is on our website, with a retired electrical engineer. His name is Greg Galuccio. He got involved because of the Warwick fire. He lives in Warwick. And he did a super informative session that we recorded that kind of looks at batteries from a fire safety, from a structural point of view, how they impact the grid, you know, how they offset things like peaker plants that are also dangerous. So any way that we can be a resource with just, you know, additional referrals, backup information, you know, questions you might want to ask, be happy to.
Can you just make sure the clerk gets your contact before you go?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Jim, I just have one more question. Sure. If I may. Does anyone else?
Ready after Mr. Dillon.
Just two things I just want to state is, number one, we keep saying that this is not going to be in a residential area. I do not agree with that whatsoever. The first home is 300 yards away, and you have a house, a house, a house, a house. If you live in my area, 9W is right over top. Trucks that come down, the big trucks that come down, the brakes get all heated up sometimes from Storm King Mountain. On a good day, some of these trucks that go by, you could actually say, I smell brakes, where's that coming from? It's coming from the trucks up on 9W. So the airflow of a smell comes down. It comes down to my house, to Brian's house, the gentleman that was here before, it comes down. The other thing that I heard from this gentleman over here, you said that your company will, is this correct? You will accept the liability of a home if it's impacted by damages by your storage facility?
Any per agreement that we will make with the village as we negotiate this, any
Okay.
damages that are directly caused by the system is liability that's borne by the owner of the system.
Okay, so you just went around it a little bit. Any agreement you have by the village, is there any agreement by, I'll say, my home with your company, that if damage is created from your company, that you accept the liability to pay for the damages 100%?
They're not gonna have like 50 individual.
No, I'm just saying, that this is a question that I heard.
I think he answered.
I don't think you did, because I think what it is if you were able to sit down with my attorney, the village's attorney, your attorney, and there was a contract that was written up for me, that this battery storage facility up the road, any damages that are created to my home are covered by your company 100%? It's a simple question.
I'll answer it very directly. We would sign an agreement with the village that would outline that we're responsible for any damages, not limited to the site on which the battery resides, that are caused directly by some kind of error of the system. We would not sign agreements with private homeowners or landowners outside of our.
Okay, I got a problem with that then. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be covered. That means that anything with the village that's in your contract is going to be accepted. For myself as a homeowner, if I have, say there's a fire by chance, and it's on a summer day where the windows are open and everything else, toxic fumes come inside my home and this and that, we got a big problem in my house. So then I go to the village and say, hey guys, whatever happened with that contract that you have with the facility? Are they going to take care of my own home? That's,
I guess for clarification, he's trying to understand, does his home fall under village?
I know what his answer is. It's,
I understand your question, sir. I think, again,
Wait a minute.
any damage,
Go ahead.
it's not limited, any damage that happens as a direct result of the system would be covered.
to my home.
To anybody's home,
To anything.
So would you do a contract with that?
No,
It would be in the contract with the village.
It's covered by
That- you
contract.
still don't,
It's not your meeting, bud.
you still don't get it. I would be more comfortable with a contract signed with me saying from your company that I am 100% covered.
Sir, I understand your point. You're making it very directly.
But you're saying to me that you will not do that.
We would only look to sign a contract
Okay.
directly with the village. If you have specific concerns or want to talk about a specific agreement between the two of us, I'm happy to give you my card and we can talk about that. That's not something that we typically do.
Okay, well, I'm not comfortable with that, just to put out there.
I understand your concern. Thank you.
Mayor, I just got a couple questions for Muley. Oh, sorry.
If Mr.
Oh,
Beach, if you-
I got you. There we go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Tilo. I live on 95 Mountain Avenue. This gentleman lives at 300 feet, 300 yards, 400 yards, I'm 500 yards. Close enough. I want to say thank you to the board for introducing something that's going to generate income for our community. At this point, it may work, it may not work. There's a lot of questions. Thank you for opening up the public hearing. I hope you have 6 public hearings. All of us suggested that we have more professionals in. I agree 100%. The gentleman from New Leaf, thank you for writing down those notes. I see you writing when people are speaking. That's very important. This young lady here had a couple of great points about runoff, contaminated runoff. You can solve that problem. When you bring your engineers in, I hope you design that facility based on a 200-year storm, not a 100-year storm. I know that that all the designers, the requirement is a 100-year storm. The cost for a 200-year storm is much more money, but that would protect a lot of people. Fire engineer, you identified the fact that DeBello did a survey of this Warwick property, which was great. Is it possible during one of these meetings for that engineer to come in and explain to us these tests that he did? Because, you know, if you read through this, there was very little, if not any, contamination from the fire. My other question is, what caused that fire? And what is New Leaf, or what is the developer, or what is the design team considering to offset that risk of the first fire?
I'm gonna let Paul, who was actually at the Warwick Fire, speak to the first part of your question, and then I'll talk about what New Leaf is going to do differently. with
One
this
second,
system.
that gentleman, where are you from?
I'm from ESRG, Fire Safety.
Oh, okay,
I'm-
great.
I'm not with, I mean, I am with them, but I'm not part of the company
Uh-huh.
itself, we're a third party. So your question was, how is this design different than Warwick?
Yeah, we learned a lot from Warwick,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What are we doing now to avoid what happened in Warwick and protect the community?
Yeah, so there hasn't been a root cause analysis on that, so I don't want to speculate on what happened on there. But we did see a fire, we do know that, and we did see the fire stay within the cabinet, and that's exactly how they are designed to fail. So in essence, it was proof of concept that if there was a failure within a box or in a cabinet in this case, it's going to stay within there and not go any further than the one particular cabinet. So in that sense, it actually worked exactly how the fire code was designed, that it would not leave the cabinet itself.
So, I think that answer is great. I don't think any of us knew that there was a cabinet around each one of these generators or batteries.
Yeah.
So that's a good step. But again, at the next meeting, I hope that there are 5 things to identify, 5 design concepts that will protect the community. When we hear about $80,000 and a 3% increases, I mean, those are Manhattan rates, and that's a great opportunity. But obviously, everybody has to feel comfortable with this, and it has to benefit 95, 98% of the community. One thing I would want to ask or add is this technology changes every year. In the event that New Leaf or the developer goes bankrupt, closes up everything, what protects this community from having a facility up there that nobody can operate? Perhaps we want to tear it down. Is there a bond in place? $1 million bond to tear it down and remove it or whatever? I'm not sure, but that should be part of, I'm sure, our council is going to protect it.
And it will be. It's not in this letter of intent, but since speaking about this letter of intent, the mayor and I have discussed a system removal bond to make sure that in the event of default or some terrible thing that happens, there's money set aside to take the entire system out.
So there was a lot of good things here. I hope that, you wrote it down, and I hope that you're gonna try to show us next time you come that this has conceptually been incorporated into the design. We may say that we're not happy with it all, and, we need more discussion. But I hope doing all these meetings, you guys are writing things down and trying to accommodate, whatever design concepts can help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get a new one, I'll follow up with you.
Yes, Ms. Scott.
Hi, Annie Scott.
Yeah, bring it down.
That's okay. Annie Scott, Fort Montgomery. What in fact caused the fire to begin with?
Yeah, fire, well, I'll go to the one that was already investigated for the first Warwick. Apparently there was water that got inside to the cabinets themselves. They're supposed to be watertight. So I don't know how the water got in there. But that would be something that may cause an electrical arc that could cause a thermal runaway event, which means that the cell heats up to a point that it cannot put itself out and continues to heat up constantly until it finally fails.
We've seen so many of the battery fires particularly in New York City, that I can understand a concern, but if you have, these are bikes placed in apartments and things of that nature with no protection. So has the company learned from the fire to facilitate a cabinet that was
would be completely, waterproof, airtight, whatever. I mean, there are mechanisms in society that allow for those things. Have you considered those or have them in place already?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Paul address this from a technical perspective as to how the fire code and the system design addresses those concerns. I will say that New Leaf Energy doesn't develop systems with the manufacturer or the model that failed in either of the two Warwick fires. And everything that we do use, we have a trusted relationship with those manufacturers, and it's all compliant to what are the very stringent, as Paul can discuss, New York State fire codes and safety certification listings that these have to pass by going through a variety of different tests, and actually, again, as Paul can probably discuss, literally being lit on fire and seeing how they perform under those circumstances.
Yeah, good questions about what's going on in New York City, where they did have lithium-ion batteries in the consumer products. And consumer products, we've seen counterfeit batteries that have come in from outside of the United States that cannot get into the supply chain. These things are reviewed by a national recognized testing laboratory. They basically use their stamp of approval, so they're on the line as a result of something that may take place. So there's a lot of layers of safety that need to be performed. As Zach mentioned, the big one was, and this was something that was instituted in the city of New York, where we wanted to make sure these things are monitored 24/7. They have a monitoring system that will look at them and look at the state of health. They can be remotely shut down. The actual battery management system is shut down without any remote work. It does it itself. It's intelligence. It's kind of updated on a regular basis, similar to your phone is updated when it gets a new operating system. The same happens here, but now they're using predictive analytics through AI to look at things way before there actually is an event that takes place, where they can actually fix them prior to coming in. Going back to one of the things that I just mentioned before, how a fail is designed. Each system that comes into the state of New York, whatever it is, has to go through rigorous testing. And one of those testings is actually light the full system on fire. It's about $1 million test. And they have to show that if the system completely fails, which is highly unlikely, I can never say never, but it's highly unlikely, but if it did completely fail, they have to show that that failure stays within the box, or in the cabinet, in this case, and will not spread to the adjoining cabinets. And that's exactly what happened in Warwick.
My last question is, how many of these facilities has New Leaf been involved with?
We have probably 60-something of these facilities in some stage of development across the entire state. New Leaf Energy also develops in different places in the country, so we have a number of these systems in New England and elsewhere. There are 5 or 6 of them that are currently operating and online and have been for 5 or 6 years with no issues. Obviously this area, there's a number of them. I would say there's probably 6 or 8 in Orange County and kind of northern Westchester County right now that were, again, not online yet, but are in some stage of active development.
Thank you.
Anybody have their hand up? Brian, come on up.
14 seconds?
Good, Brian.
I just got a couple of questions for New Leaf, now hearing you guys speak a little bit. I'm sorry, the New Leaf representative, I didn't get your name.
Zach Mason.
Zach, okay. So, real quick, you build the units, you guys are contractors, you build the units, then you sell it to a company, right?
We will go through the development process and we'll sell it pre-construction.
Okay, so you develop them and then you sell it to, you transfer ownership over to a company.
Correct.
Does the contract that you're gonna sign with this village carry over to that company, or where does your responsibility end after you transfer the ownership of this facility over to the company?
Yes, the contract that we would execute with the village carries over exactly as written and agreed upon to that company.
Okay. I got do we know who commissioned, just one quick question, do we know who commissioned this independent report? It's an independent report, it's not a government report. It's an independent report. That means it was commissioned by somebody to print this. It's not a government report, it's an independent report. Do we know who commissioned that independent
The one
report?
from Warwick?
Yeah.
I think it's Labella. Is it the Labella firm? It's literally on the.
Well, they produced it, but who commissioned it? Labella just doesn't come out of nowhere and say, I'm gonna produce a report.
I think the municipality.
Municipality did? All right, well, we should confirm who produced that. Paul?
Yeah, I do, I think it is a municipality, it is on their website.
It is on their website, so
Yeah,
the municipality commission.
yeah, if you go to the Village of Warwick,
If I could just say, it says prepared for Mr. Michael Newhart, Village of Warwick, he's the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, you were a firefighter at any point, right?
Yeah.
Right, and you consult over with that for the fire safety.
Yeah.
Can you explain, just real quick, how important response times are?
Yeah.
The response time to any fires,
yeah.
very
Great
important,
question.
right?
Yeah,
It's
great
one of the
question.
major
Yeah.
metrics
Sure.
that get measured from a fire department standpoint. Can you tell us how response times differ from an actual salaried fire department that's on staff 24/7 and the volunteer fire department?
Yeah, there is a longer response time in the volunteers, for sure. I don't know exactly the number from what the
Okay.
response time is.
But there is one, right? Because
There
you
is.
were a firefighter in a city, I'm assuming, or you were a
Yeah.
volunteer or?
No, I was with the New York City Fire.
Oh, you were, okay, good. You probably worked with my father.
Um,
So basically, you know that there's a difference in response times. That's something to make note, because we have a volunteer fire department who, while they do have a great response time for Orange County, they are volunteer. And there is a huge difference than having 12 firefighters sleeping in a thing, getting on call, ready to go, and getting there within a minute, to having a volunteer firefighter set off an alarm, get everyone there, get into the trucks, get up to the site. That fire's been burning for 5 minutes already. Just something to think about, especially for the village, because we do have a volunteer fire department. Another thing is, do we know how many, Warwick failed because water got into the system? Paul, do we know how many of these systems fail because of water seepage? Like into the actual boxes? Do we have, there's failures all over the country, we know there's failures. Do we know a percentage or an idea of a percentage of how many fail because of water?
Yeah, honestly, there hasn't been a lot of failures. If you go to EPRI, they will actually, EPRI, which is the Electrical Power Research Institute, they have gotten every single incident took place around the world, and you'll see there's not a lot. There's thousands, there's probably about 1,000 in Texas alone. They haven't had a failure that I'm aware of.
But we don't know how much of that is water.
We don't.
Okay,
I don't know that. That comes out in a root cause analysis, and I don't want to speculate that because I'm not here to know.
That's fine, I was just wondering if you know off the top of the head. Paul, very, very informative, I just want to see if you knew that, because apparently the Warwick fire was caused from water seepage into a box that shouldn't have been. We want to put a battery storage facility next to water plants and water towers in an area that gets inundated with water. And our major problem in this village is water. Food for thought. Food for thought, everybody. Food for thought. Thank you very much. Guys, thank you so much for answering my questions as best possible.
Anybody else? Whoop.
How you doing? Don Feldman, I live on Mount Avenue. Many of these guys are my neighbors. I think it's very informative what you're doing. Have we talked to DEC or the Corps of Engineers about any of this?
No.
Well,
Because you guys, for me, you folks come first. But they'd have to go through all this other.
that is paramount.
Oh, absolutely.
You're less than 50 yards from the stream that runs into the Hudson River. You're dealing with the Corps of Engineers with a car accident on the stream, correct?
I think it's just, if it's potential for, they included that as if there's a.
Corps of Engineers deals with it. And now we're gonna build a storage facility next to it.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to cross those things off before we start anything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sir, I will say that as part of our standard development process, we have to get permits from both the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC in order for this to ever get approved. And so if either of those bodies determine that this is a bad idea for whatever reason, we don't get those permits, we don't get a permit from the village and the system doesn't get built. So those are all kind of roadblocks that we haven't gone through yet because we've only had this conversation between ourselves and the village.
Yes, sir. You know what, sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Wells hasn't gone yet. Can you go first, Mr. Wells?
You know, after the last meeting, I was actually one of the people who suggested maybe putting the storage facility north of the village, but my idea was to do it on federal property that had been taken from the town years ago. Because while this isn't zoned residential, it's a stone's throw from everybody's house. And as Burr said, you know, what's the impact on the property values? He already lives under all those houses of property I have up the hill, already live next to high tension lines, and some people are apprehensive about even buying a house next to a high tension power line, let alone a storage facility. I think a couple things. I don't know if Jack, I'm sure you're following your battery engineer, you're following the new development batteries in Europe with the donut factory that's come up with a silica-based battery instead of lithium phosphate.
I'd be happy to talk with you about it afterwards.
Because, you know, this may be obsolete technology within a year. And you're gonna be putting in a toxic system when a new system may be available that's non-toxic. And then I'm sure it'd be too much expense to try to replace that. So maybe we're rushing into something that is premature. And the governor said that she wanted 60 of these facilities around the state. And you said that you're developing 60 facilities. Are you the sole developer for the governor's plan?
No, we're not the sole developer for the governor's plan. And I suppose to qualify my statement, developing means anything from sitting here having this meeting to something that's, 2 months away from getting its notice to proceed. And obviously, for the built-in catches, safeguards that are built into the permitting process, a number of those systems won't make it to commercial operation.
But given that you're developing so many of these sites, what is your understanding of the possibility of the governor's office or the people that are really driving this program to persuade the federal authorities to give a half an acre of federal property that would be up on what we call 293, out away from our residential areas? I know we lose the revenue, but that's a whole separate issue. I think the people like the residents of Mountain Avenue and Eagle Valley Road and Chestnut Street, and all those residential homes that are stone's throw away would feel a lot more comfortable if it was outside their neighborhood.
I can't claim to have any familiarity with how the state government interacts with federal property owners as to where these batteries should go or not, so I'm afraid I can't answer your question.
Do you think it'd be worth, given that you want to site one in this vicinity, to approach them and see if they're amenable to setting that up?
But again, I certainly understand your concern about the proximity to residences. I think that in terms of how whether state or federal government processes work for bringing on these things, they're typically done as large capital improvement plans where requests for proposals are sent out and vendors are solicited. I don't think there's any way that a private developer could approach the federal government and say, we want to put a battery on your property. I just don't think it works that way, unfortunately.
But they have other facilities that are on federal lands that are privately operated.
Certainly.
You have, even on the thruway, you have private entities that operate service centers. And that leads me to my next question. In those facilities, they typically pay a percentage of their revenue as lease payment rather than just a flat percentage. Have you shared with the town what your economic profile is for this operation and the sales of this to subsequent developer operators? That possibly instead of a flat $75,000 a year with inflation adjustment, that they get a percentage of the revenue? Because if these things are successful, $75 might be a drop in the bucket in 5 years.
We have not discussed, and we typically don't structure our deals in that way. I'd be happy to, explore that with the village if that's something they're interested in. We think that the rate that we proposed was fair and frankly above market for what we typically offer in Orange County. We think that there's a good site here and there's a good reason to be here, and so we offered them a deal that we thought was fair. We also would certainly be interested, and we've spoken about this before, doing some kind of additional host-community agreement or investment in the community, whether that's in the water facilities in addition to the revenue that's already coming in from the lease payments, or some other kind of emergency preparedness initiative with the fire department, or frankly, whatever the village deems that they need. And so we would probably look to do that regardless of the actual terms of the deal in addition.
So would you maybe be willing to share the prospectus that you're offering to past completed projects so that you transferred to other investment groups?
We offer the prospectus.
Well, you develop a prospectus to offer the sale transfer of the established facility to maybe a hedge fund or something.
Yeah, I mean, the specific deal terms of those transactions would be private business agreements behind NDAs, as any private business transactions would be. And so I think again, just to answer your question directly, no, I don't think that we would share those specific figures. But again, what I can say is that the deal that we're offering the village that we have not agreed to yet, that this is the first step of, is above market for what we would typically offer a private landowner in this area.
Are any of those transfers that you've made of the 5 or 6 units you're talking, subsystems you're talking about, have they been transferred to any public health company?
No.
The site that you're looking at, in between the water tanks and the filtration plant, people have already mentioned the concerns about the siting of that. But I have the second consideration of that. From what I can tell, it's right next to the culvert that was installed after our major flood. And that's a 4-foot, I think maybe a 5-foot culvert burn. And they put the culvert in, 5-foot corrugated steel culvert, covered it, and a few days later we had another rainstorm and it washed that out. And in the storm, not only did it wash that culvert out, but it undermined our, how many 1,000-gallon tank is that? 500,000-gallon tank, I don't know. But a massive water tank undermined the 4 feet below the foundation of the water tank. So you say you would elevate the units to protect them from the infusion of water, but how high can you raise that and how deep would you have to go? Because that's granite up there. You can't just drive pilings down. You'd have to build a solid concrete foundation up from that. And I wonder how the expense of that impacts the profitability of that and the reasonableness of that site.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it is expensive to raise these sites. It's something that we do on a relatively standard basis in our design process based on, we do a lot of sites in coastal areas and in New York City and other places, and so it's certainly a relatively normal concern that we build into our engineering process. Again, the only conversations that have happened around this site design have been very theoretical between New Leaf Energy and the mayor's office. All of these things are going to need to be considered between the engineer that the village brings on and our own engineering team, and we work together to make the site functional. And if there's a roadblock that is either completely cost prohibitive or the site won't work from a safety perspective, we don't do it. That's fair.
I reiterate the idea that Morgan had. I think a community task force. And, if you're going to do something, if I do something that I want a zoning modification, I have to let people know by certified mail. I think the residents of Eagle Valley and anybody within a quarter of a mile of that site or to get a direct letter that maybe they missed something in public meeting or public notice or newspaper, that they should know what's going on here, if it's gonna impact their values.
We would also, by law, we're required, if we go to a public hearing, we'll have to send notice to all abutters to that site, so that will absolutely happen as part of the permit
I would do
process.
that now instead of as you get farther along, because as you get farther along, things have a tendency to get their own legs.
Appreciate that, thank you.
How far out are we from the more thermally stable? I think it's the lithium ion. Is that what you're proposing, or is this the nickel?
These are lithium ion
They are the
systems.
lithium ion.
Yes.
So it is more thermally stable than the past.
Yes, sir.
There's a gentleman before me asked, did you identify any other areas, like industrial zones within Highland Falls, that might be more habitable and where it'd be better suited to be built at?
We, at the village's prompting, we started exploring this site, and so we had done an exploration which landed us on the Cedar Lane site, which obviously the community wasn't happy with, and I think we are trying to react as best as we can. You know, the mayor's office and the people in the village know the area better than we do, and so we're exploring the site that we were, you know, prompted to explore.
So this is where it led you to this site now. You're saying the Cedar Lane one was an identified site, and what deterred you from there?
The community's response, frankly, that it was too close to residences, and we tried to take that on board and react to it, and so we went to the mayor's office and said, you know, we understand this isn't gonna work, and in a conversation that I had with another developer and the mayor, we landed on this site as being worthy of exploring, and again, we're just in the very preliminary stages of doing that.
Well, I'd like to let you know that where you're planning to build this, I live there. I'm a community. The gentleman here is a community, and other people are a community. We're in the same situation as that cedar. And if you look at it, and you look at the concerns that everyone's building out here, this is more than just a monetary involvement for the town.
I agree.
We should think about all of that. And we always appreciate how you guys are trying to find new ways to bring into the town. And that's appreciated. But if, just like you heard the Cedar people, Lane, we need to hear your Mountain Avenue people who are a part of this community anyway. I would like to actually ask one thing. How many people are opposed to this? And how many people are for it?
I think the question should be, how many people need more information? That would be helpful.
I don't think so. I don't think it's the more information. I think.
I'm not, oh.
I just.
Whoa, okay.
My
Wait,
opinion is
let's
this,
not-
here's what I asked. You said you looked at the Warwick as one of the ways to prevent future fires. How many times was the Warwick, battery station, how many times was it on fire?
I think there were 2 fires over a couple of years at 2 separate facilities.
And is that battery station still up and operational now? Is that facility?
No.
No, I
Why
think-
not?
Yeah, typically, when there's an event that takes place in a facility, they don't usually allow people to turn them on until the root cause of analysis and the identification of how it started. So it can't go back into service till they figure out what caused it.
So they still have no idea what caused it?
Well, it takes a while to do a root cause analysis. It's not done overnight. It does take a while.
So one last thing, how are you planning to secure this battery station from any threats? Not just from physical threats, but let's talk about electronic threat. That being a real focus now today, is that part of your development plan? Do you have a security system put in place where any AI or any hackers can go in place and try to mitigate that?
I'm gonna speak to the physical security, and I'll let Paul speak to the electrical security. The system we'll certainly have a chain link fence around it. We can implement barbed wire if that's something that the village is interested in. It'll be remotely monitored 24/7, both the electrical system and the site itself. And something that I spoke about with Ms. Gargiulo, as well as some of the members of the fire department, is that we can build in some different communication redundancies, which, you know, not only would allow the fire department to communicate out from that site in various ways, regardless of weather, cell reception, phone lines being up or down, and whatnot, but we could also include something like a satellite connection for the site, so that it is completely connected and monitored 24/7.
My biggest other concern is now with the growing threat of hacking. That can be another, that would be my one concern, especially near West Point, near in our community. It could, you know, that security option should be looked at and thought of, and there should be insurance for that as well, because our townspeople, who's gonna be held responsible for that is, I'm pretty sure you're building it, and whoever the operator is gonna be taking over on it, but there has to be consideration also by security-wise, as network-wise and threat-wise, because as you know, there's been plenty of other facilities have been compromised throughout the U.S.
Yeah, so this system would be directly interconnected into the utility grid. The utility grid has their own cybersecurity that they need to do from NERC and FERC, which is National Electric Regulatory Commission, and the Federal Electric Regulatory Commission. Plus the battery energy storage, I mentioned before, they have this thing called the BMS. It's kind of looking at the state of health, but it also qualifies for its own security that they have to have. And that's identified as part of their listing from the National Recognized Testing Laboratory.
Thank you. Good luck. Appreciate it.
Sure. It's okay.
Just kind of on the note of this, and I think, not to quell fear, but I think when we lack transparency, it creates fear too. And you keep talking about roadblocks and things we have to get through as part of any regulatory process. Can you guys explain to me, if a letter of intent goes through, what is the next process? I'm assuming zoning, I'm assuming planning, I'm assuming things like, can you walk us through what are the roadblocks that this would have to get to, maybe to give anyone some sense of security that we do have checks and balances in the system?
I can address that, or?
Yeah, so if it got through us for the letter of intent, and then we would have to entertain the lease agreement. After that, you have to deal with DEC, you'd have to deal with Army Corps. Those are all special permitting that they would have to put in for. And then eventually we go to planning, and if there's any zoning change there, I don't know if they're, because it's technically a utility in that area. But if they had to go to a zoning change based upon whatever local law, then they would go to zoning board. If they go to planning board and the planning board has to make any decisions for approval, which I would, say that they would, they'd have to go through a public hearing there as well. And then if they had to go through a change for zone, they would also have to go to zoning for another public hearing to go through that board as well. So there's several other attempts to get a bite at the apple, but we're not even going to go that far until, I'm glad we had this meeting tonight, despite what we heard from some folks, one individual, that this was a stupid idea. It's actually very good to get this information. We heard from the residents, which is very important, and I think we're going to definitely have more than a couple meetings, and hopefully get some of these things answered and get more information. We're not signing anything tonight. They already know, he already knows this. We've already talked at length about this. As one of the residents mentioned, it's something we have to look at. And all these things that were mentioned tonight, we have to look at. And I like the task force idea too. It's all good stuff. It's the reason why we're doing it this way, okay? So, sorry.
Yeah, no, just one last follow-up. If say we do go forward with a letter of intent, and I know you haven't drawn up contracts, and this is all big picture. What would be, I guess in general terms, how this works in other places, our contractual obligation to follow through if at any point something happened or, the planning board said, yeah, it's okay, but the village board was like, wait, there's something I still don't like here. What would be our contractual obligations to follow through if at some point we wanted to pull out?
We are absolutely beholden to the specific pathway that the village lays out per its code. And so we wouldn't be able to deviate that from that in any way. My understanding of the process here is that we would have to seek a special use permit from the planning board to get site approval if they deem that we're a public utility in that zone, which is my understanding and is what we'd be pursuing here. Again, if we deviate from that and we need to go to the zoning board, we would need that additional approval. But again, that's we have no way of differentiating ourselves from the same permitting pathway that any other type of development would be beholden to.
I guess my question was more for the village, that even if they follow the pathway, but something that does get approved out of your capability of approval happens, and you're not necessarily comfortable with the terms, do we still have to?
Well, I don't think we would move forward unless we were comfortable with the terms.
What about so even if the planning board decides it's okay, do you still get overruling authority, I guess is the question.
It wouldn't even get to the planning board until it got through us. And the planning board's looking at it based upon the law that's on the books. And if they have to change any of that law, then they have to go to the zoning board to get that variance. But if they have to, that's how that system works. That's why some folks always want us to change the zone. It's important to have the two boards because that's how it's supposed to work. The plan goes to the planning board. And then the planning board looks at it and says, okay, well, here's the actual law. This is what you're trying to do. Let me try to take that and put it in there and see if it fits. We did that in kindergarten. Remember the little circle things and the square? Okay. So anyway, they look and see if it fits, and they say, well, wait a minute, there's a couple things here. Are you willing to do differently? No, I can't. Doesn't make sense for us to do it differently, and this is the reasons why. And they say, okay, makes sense to us. You need to go to the zoning board to get the variance. But we're
Checks and balances all.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, lots of checks and
Really
balances.
checking.
I think she means also if something in the interim catastrophic should happen at some other site, do we have the ability to say, hey, we're not doing
Yeah,
this?
things like that, unpredicted.
Uh-oh.
Legally, what are our obligations? And again, you don't have to have an answer, because I know this is also
I'd have
preliminary.
to- I'd
These
have
are
to-
just thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought, and I would get an answer for you.
Yeah, no problem. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
Hello, Christy Petratus from 156 Main Street. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I just had general questions. Is this like the size of a football field we're talking about? Is this the size of a subway? How big of a facility we're talking about?
This room. That's actually a pretty good approximation. Something like the size of this room. It's going to be about 100 by 100 square. You can change the square footage there in either direction to make it a rectangle, but it's basically 5 to 6, 30-ish feet by 8 foot tall storage container looking objects.
Okay.
And then within those containers are the subsets of the actual cabinets that contain the batteries.
Okay. And then my second question, I read the website a little bit and it mentions that the town will get power when there's a high demand on the electrical grid. Does that reduce our electrical cost, or how does that work?
So the reason that the state incentivizes private development in this area is not to have a direct year-over-year cost reduction to ratepayers. That's all governed by the Public Service Commission and the individual utilities. The point here is that if Orange and Rockland deemed that they needed to do some kind of system-wide upgrade in this area to create more power stability, it would reflect on the ratepayer. So that's how utilities pay for upgrades. They increase rates as well as getting state funding, and then they do those upgrades. Private investment helps stabilize the grid without the need for ratepayer increases. All of that cost is borne by the developer.
Okay.
And so you can think about it as hopefully a stabilization of costs or the reduction in a need for future rate increases to do system upgrades.
And then I imagine we've been losing a lot of electricity recently, a lot of power. I imagine this wouldn't be active, it wouldn't be like a backup generator or anything. Yeah, there's a.
That's correct. It's not meant to be a backup generator in you know, a tree comes down and goes through a power line and takes the system off the grid. It can't somehow circumvent that and provide electricity to the area. The point is, at times when the system is strained and there's not enough power for the residents and businesses in Highland Falls, that there would be a surplus of energy stored there to be released onto the grid. So you would hopefully see less power shortages and certainly, you know, no brownouts or things like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Kristen?
Anybody else? Okay, thanks everybody for getting up and talking. We're not, you know, we're still working on getting this out to the public, so I think we'll probably have another meeting at some point. I guess my goal will be by the next work session. We'll have it here. And maybe we won't talk so much about the nuts and bolts of what I brought up tonight in the LOI, but maybe we'll have a presentation on this actual battery storage facility, what the other ones have looked like that would be similar to the one that would go here. We'll get some more of the facts that were asked tonight for some questions. Maybe we'll come up with a fact sheet. We're going to talk about a task force to look at, and I'll be in communication, but we're not going to do anything tonight with the LOI portion. I do have the engineer I wanted to look at. I don't know, I may just want to be able to ask them questions. Yeah, the engineer that we would use for the project. Again, it's not for the project, because there is no project, it's just a discussion of one, but I'm wondering, you know what I'll do, I'll just have a conversation with them and see what they're willing to do that we don't have to engage them for officially. I have a pretty good relationship with he doesn't do the battery storage stuff, but he's part of the company, so I'll just have a conversation if we have some questions that we want to ask him, and maybe we could just do like a per diem or something up front, and I'll go from there. I'll bring it back to the board and we'll go from there. You guys okay with that? Okay. Anything else? You okay? All right.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is all very preliminary. We appreciate you guys coming out and listening and asking questions. We want to be transparent and safe about this and work with the village. We feel that if we have a good relationship with the community, that's only going to make a safer site and something that people are actually okay with. So yeah, thanks for coming out and asking questions, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for the information.
Okay, thank you. I'll just take a motion to adjourn.
Can I do a quick comment?
Sure.
I actually have a quick comment, because I think we're being very transparent here, and I think it's important for that. I think one of the pieces that we're missing and something that we don't talk about is we're talking about strains on the grid. I don't know if everybody remembers, we don't really discuss it, but in 2023, the All-Electric Building Act passed, and it's been put on hold until November, and it was put on hold in November 25, until the Second Circuit Court of Appeal came through. It was based on a lawsuit from builders. It's going to be revisited, and if that appeal does not go through, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. That is eventually going to be passed. We're going to have all electric buildings. So when we talk about things on the grid, and I say this because I think we're working in tandem here when we talk about the battery storage facility. Now, I don't know if this is the perfect place for it, but what I do know is that it's happening, it's going to happen, and I think at this point, it really is inevitable, and I think we need to be cautious and working to predefine where they belong with clear zones, safety standards, and revenue expectations up front, so future projects are going by our rules instead of us reacting to theirs. So I think that's something that we really should think about. This board can go away tomorrow. We could have a board that's just going to say, hey, we're doing it, and then you'll be picketing outside. So those are points that really should be looked at also, and I think that's why it's important that we're having this conversation. We really do want to predefine where these go. again, it might not be the best place here, the questions are awesome, there's a lot, listen, it's raising my learning curve. This is not my real well, but I'm doing a lot of research on it, so, I just wanted to put that out there.
And before you close, Mrs. Salvo, you just take some quick comments from the public.
More comments?
Well, not related to this, related to others. At the end of the meeting, you know, I didn't know we were gonna have this, lengthy discussion.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But you wanna do it before I end the meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I can do it from right here, or?
No, no, sit up there.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to remind you guys, and I know we all hear different things. I like this young lady's idea about at the 11th hour, in the event that something catastrophic happens, we have the ability to pull out. That gentleman from New Leaf, at some point, will start spending money, and he's going to want a commitment from the village. I know our council will protect us, and I like that idea. I didn't realize that we were gonna have this lengthy discussion, and I'm not gonna hold everybody up. I'll wait for the next meeting, but I wanted to give you guys a handout on these topics of discussion. If that's okay. I'd like to
Take care.
That's it. If I can just really quickly, you know, we're gonna talk about the PUD. I wanna talk about the 70-foot height. Is that confirmed? Is it no longer a 70-foot height? And this will be for next meeting if it works.
Okay.
Reduction of commercial space on the ground floor, redefine the B1 zone. The B1 zone currently stops at Key Bank. The B1 zone should extend down to across from Ondiora Park, which is all the commercial space anyway, and a couple of other issues that I'll review at the next meeting.
Okay.
And Mrs. Salvo, you said you're gonna have, this team's gonna have a number of public hearings related to this.
Yeah.
I hope you're committed to that, right?
I just can't call it a public hearing, because we're not
Okay,
proposing anything yet, but yeah.
thank you.
And I want to get a couple quick things. So, just to remind, you know, I thank Trustee Gargiulo and the rest of the board, and just a couple of like informational things. Like, when the first proposal came into this community, it was on private property. It had nothing to do with a municipality. I think I said that before, but maybe I was just saying a joke when I said it, so I just want to be clear. That's number one. Number two, the closest house was, I believe, 10 to 20 feet away. 10 to 20 feet away. So, you know, we looked at this site only because it's within the village's confines. And the first house is roughly 300 yards, maybe more away, because the fire chief actually went and walked it. So we're not just shooting in the dark here, and Zach knows that I'm, you know, a little standoffish with the whole thing. He knows that and appreciates that. So I just want to reiterate that we didn't look at it haphazardly. And there's a bunch of stuff I could talk about. Like, I believe that the pipe that was brought up tonight at the podium is after this facility would be in. It's not before it, it's after it.
That's correct.
And the particular spot that we're talking about, I don't think was submerged underwater. It was in the brook. It was not in this particular location, okay? From the videos that I've seen, let me add that part, okay? From the videos I've seen. And I've seen a lot of pictures and a lot of videos of that particular site. So, again, not looking at things haphazardly. And I love the comment about the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC. Yes, they have to be involved at some point, but in the process, they have to come here first, because it's a home rule state, and you have to go to your locality first. But I don't want to move at a rapid speed, because I want to hear from the public, because there is a risk. There is a risk. And everything is a risk, as I've said. We've had 2 tanker trucks spill over into the water. Okay? Nobody came to a meeting, and this is not a criticism, this is factoids. Nobody came to the meeting and said, ExxonMobil, I want a contract with my house to fix my house if my water's damaged. So I appreciate good information, good questions, but some of the stuff, you just won't be able, it's not gonna happen. No company's gonna come and write a contract for 50 homeowners. If it's that bad, we're not gonna do it. Okay, if it's that bad, we're not gonna do it. It's very easy. But when you're trying to get a word in, or I have someone come here and says this is a stupid idea, I'm sorry, I don't think it is. I don't think it is to engage the public. I've been criticized by the same person for not engaging the public, so I kind of find it hilarious. We're taking baby steps to look at this because the residents have come to a meeting and said we don't want to pay more for this, we don't want to pay more for that. I've heard that too. So, okay, and I also see some of the same people, not right now, but they were here tonight, complain about brown water. They also complain about us borrowing money to fix the brown water. You don't want to raise the rates, you don't want us to borrow money, you know, eventually, you know, you got to pay the bill. So we have to figure some stuff out. And with that, you have to look at alternatives. Doesn't mean we're doing it. It does not mean we're doing it. We're just looking at it. And to be honest with you, when I first had a conversation with Zach, and I appreciate Zach because I think sometimes you have kids yet, Zach?
No, I don't.
Well, you're gonna do great, because you've had plenty of patience with me. You've had plenty of patience with me. I have a son, so I hope you have a son or a daughter, a healthy kid, whatever. But eventually when you do, you'll be fine, because you have a lot of patience, and I appreciate that. But, you know, because there is a risk involved, but there is a reward involved too. And that's money to our infrastructure. And I don't wanna make it just about money, but part of our job being on the board here is to do the research and then make the tough decision. And while I appreciate task force, at the end of the day, the buck stops here, as brought up by a resident. So we're on the hook, not the task force, we're on the hook. So just like the planning or zoning board would be. So I just want to make those comments, and we are going to have more meetings, and we'll get more information. We'll have the website, and we will get those other folks that are closest to the property a special invite so that they can come to the meeting. So with that, I'll take them.
I did have someone share with me over the weekend some videos of the flood with water actually coming through in that area.
Mhm.
So that being part of the planning is definitely, needs to be.
Yeah, it definitely came through the area, but not like it was downstream, is my point. So,
I'll give you a video.
huh?
I'll give you the video.
Good, give me the video. I want to see the video. So, with that, are you guys okay? Motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.